as we go, if you all have any questions at all, please let me know. I cannot see the chat feature unless I go out of these slides. So if you would, if someone could just kind of pipe in.
I'm going to moderate for you today. This is
Perfect.
Krista Miller, and I'll be watching for that.
Even better. All right. So my name is Paige Wilson, and I'm an English teacher and the cheerleading coach at Central Hardin High School. This is going to be my 4th year teaching. I am a Hardin County Schools Innovate Fellow, as well as a Level 2 Google Certified Educator. And I don't really like the name of this, but they call it Screencastified Genius, which I took one test and learned some stuff about Screencastify, so I don't really consider myself a genius there. But if you ever need any help with Screencastify, I would love to help you with that as well. And then my Twitter handle is on here if you would like to connect with me on Twitter. And then my email address is here if you were to ever need any help with anything at all. So in this session, you're going to learn strategies and skills to help you be just more consistent, clear, and save time when you're working with Classroom and Drive. When your Google Classroom and Drive are organized, you're providing consistency not only for you, but for your students and your parents. You're making both of these tools just more user-friendly for everyone involved. When we were working with NTI in the spring, several parents and students were confused on how to access material for other teachers within our building. They had a lot of questions. So using these strategies, I was really able to help some of the newer teachers in our building or teachers who just haven't really done a whole lot with Google Classroom and with Google Drive. So students were able to kind of find the materials that they needed for the day. So hopefully these strategies will work for you too. So this session was created for someone who is relatively new with Google Classroom and Drive, or someone who is a new teacher. So if you are a Level 2 Google person or are really familiar with Google tools, this might not be as beneficial for you as it is someone who isn't as familiar. So I will show you how to create topics within your Google Classroom. So these topics kind of serve as headings for assignments, for questions that you post on there and materials, and they make it easy to navigate and locate anything that you're referring to, either if you are in person or if you are participating in the Online Learning Academy, or Lord forbid, if we all have to shift back to the non-traditional instruction model. So I'll show you how to use the classroom calendar for your benefit, your students' benefit, and parents' benefit as well. And then I'll also show you the work area and what that will look like for you and for students. And this is something that I use all the time just to keep myself organized in what I've graded, what I haven't graded, what students have turned in. I used to go through and have to click each individual assignment in all 5 of my classes to see if anyone has turned anything in. And this little area has made things a lot easier. And then at the end of the session, I'll give you some time to practice with some of these strategies and ask me any questions that you might have through the chat feature or with the mic. So first thing I'm going to show you today is creating topics within your Google Classroom. So again, topics are kind of like headings for the material and the questions, the assignments that you post. They're really, really easy to add. You just hit the create button on the classwork page, which I'll show you that here in just a second. You can create as many topics as you want, and you can drag and drop the materials underneath the topics that you create. So if you've already created a Google Classroom and you've started posting some material on there for the classroom or for next school year, you are way ahead of me, but it's not too late to go in and organize this by topic. You can just drag and drop the materials underneath. You don't have to redo anything at all. So I'm going to show you one of my Google Classrooms from last year to kind of walk you through this process. So this was the classroom for my honors English 4 or my seniors. my first period class. So when you open Google Classroom and you choose the classroom that you want to enter, this is the page that you are immediately taken to, which is called the stream page. And you can see that up here at the top. At the beginning of the year or at the beginning of every trimester, I explain to students that they really shouldn't be on this page for much of anything. And I direct them to click the classwork tab, which is the second one here at the top. And the reason that I do this, the stream can get really cluttered really fast, and it's only organized chronologically or by order that you post. So you can see they're just in order by date, and that's not necessarily the order in which I want students to access things, and it has absolutely no rhyme or reason other than the date that it was posted. So it's kind of like, I tell them it's kind of like their Twitter feed. But this classwork tab makes things a lot easier to access. It's just cleaner looking and user friendly. So if you can see, I have several different topics here. We did a multi-genre project. I had a topic just for NTI, and that was mostly just informational things for them. We did the serial podcast. So I had everything underneath the serial podcast for that unit. Seniors have a lot of information, especially about graduation and all of that was going on during the NTI period. So I created a topic for that. And then finally, just some regular class information and getting to know you tab from early in the trimester. So if I wanted to create another tab, just like you would create an assignment, I simply just hit the create button up at the top of this. And your very last option here is create a topic. So you just click that. It'll pop up here. You can add your topic. I was posting an example on here the other day, and that I'm going to use later in this presentation. And one of my seniors who has already graduated asked me if he had to do that assignment. So hopefully they don't. If they're still a member of the classroom, they're not paying any attention this morning. So that's how you could create a topic for any of your classes. You can also see over here on the tool on the side, you can access all of your topics. So if you had quite a few, then they could just click on one of these. If they were just looking for some graduation information, they can click on that, and all of that information from that topic appears. So this is definitely just easier for them than accessing everything from that stream option. So how you structure your topics is completely up to you and whatever works best in your classroom. And this even could depend on how you're teaching this year as well. We haven't been told yet at Central what, if we're in person or if we're online or what that's going to look like just yet. But that could change for me with the mode that I'm teaching. So one option that I saw a lot of people doing through the NTI was organizing by week. So that might work for you. You can sort by the unit, which this is what works best for my classroom structure, because I'm not necessarily just doing one unit at a time. We have independent reading going on. We had serial going on. We had more than one unit occurring at a time. So if students were able to kind of access by that, it just seemed to make things different. For elementary teachers, this might work best for you. You can organize your topics by the subject. So, like you're reading math, science, whatever it is you're working with. And then I've also seen in some of our business classes or our technology classes that they sort by file type, which I've never done this before, but there is a teacher in our building who says that this works really well for her. So if you decide, whatever you decide how to structure your classroom, if you decide that it's not working, it's really easy for you to change. All you have to do to change the name of a topic, I call it the snowman. You just hit these 3 dots here and you can rename it, you can delete it, you can move it up or down to work with positioning. So whatever works best for you. But despite that, I just encourage you to be consistent with whatever mode that you choose with naming your assignments and your materials. So for example, in our serial unit, I tried to label each assignment for every episode the same. So if you haven't heard of the Serial podcast, we listened to the first season in my English 4 class this past trimester, and then when we were on NTI. So I try to keep everything really consistent for them in terms of naming the assignments so they knew what they were looking for each time. Another suggestion that I have for you is to number assignments in order that you would like for them to be completed. So for example, when we were working on our multi-genre unit, there were several different parts for students to complete, and it kind of got confusing there. So I wanted to make it easier so they knew which order they were supposed to complete those assignments. Because in order for the project to work, it had to be completed in a certain order. So numbering these assignments really helped students follow the order that I wanted them to be completed. And it's also really easy to tell a kid, hey, you missed assignment number 3 underneath the multi-genre tab, as opposed to saying, hey, you missed the multimedia component assignment for the multi-genre project. And they just kind of look at you like you have 4 eyes. So for this unit in particular, numbering, okay, you start here with number 1 on your visual component, and then you will end on number 5, submitting that final project. So that seemed to help, and it's definitely something that I would suggest for you to use. All right. So moving on, I will show you the assignment feature, or the assignment calendar feature, that is already embedded into Google Classroom and on your Google Calendar and your students' Google Calendar, even though they might not know that they have one. So each time a teacher creates an assignment or a question inside of Classroom and you attach a due date to it, the assignment instantly displays on the class calendar inside of Google Classroom. So you just have to show your kids, and for yourself, you just have to click on that calendar that is located inside of Classroom. It's been doing this for you already. You just might not have known it. So there are 3 different ways that you can access this calendar. So the first way is from simply the Google Classroom classwork tab. It is right up here. You just click Google Calendar. So I added an assignment on here on this calendar just so you all could see kind of what it would look like. Right now you're going to see every single calendar that I have, but let me go in and uncheck these. Okay, so you can see here I have an assignment due or set to be due at 11:58 p.m. on Friday. So kids can see that. And what's great about this is that their due dates show on this calendar for every single one of their classes. So for parents, this is a really easy communication tool. They can see what is due, and then they can kind of go in and check and make sure, that everything has been submitted, and it just makes it easier for students to kind of monitor themselves. So you can access it there. There is a menu option here within Google Classroom, and you can just click the calendar option. I'm not going to click it because it's just going to take me right back to that same calendar. And then if you're a regular Google Calendar user, then, which you can see up here, I have my Google Calendar pinned. You can just access that by going to Google Calendar and it will pop up. You just have to make sure that, whatever you want, whatever calendars you want to see, you have selected over here on the side to appear. In addition to assignments, you can also add other important events for your class to the calendar. So it's not just due dates that you can set on here. You can click create, and if they're going on a field trip or whatever it might be, you can change the calendar here. All mine are popping up that I use all the time. You can add that event to the calendar. So maybe you want to put the due date for their field trip money or whatever it might be. You can add that to the calendar and parents can see that as well. You can set it to notify parents who have subscribed to your calendar as well. So it's really just another great communication tool between you, your kids, and your parents. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to stop me, but I want to make sure that you all have some time at the end to kind of work with some of this stuff, and I can help you if you have any kinks that need to be worked out. All right. The next feature that I wanted to show you is the work area of Google Classroom, which this is newer. It's been rolled out with one of the updates that Google has done. So teachers and students can take advantage of this work area inside of Google Classroom to gather all of their outstanding assignments into one location. If a teacher hasn't graded a particular assignment, it will also display in this area. So I'm going to show you kind of what it looks like from a student perspective with a classroom that I'm enrolled in versus what it looks like from a teacher perspective if you were actually teaching the class. The work area kind of serves as a to-do list for me, and I have my students check their to-do list. If they get finished early in class, it shows from all of their classes on that task list so they can see any outstanding assignments that they have, and it just kind of helps you manage your workflow more effectively. Before this was rolled out, I used to have to go in and click on each assignment individually to see if a student had turned in work, where this section tells me what I need to do and if anything has been turned in. So if you click the menu bar or the hamburger, that's what I refer to it as for my kids, up at the top, the classes that I teach are showing up first. So under that, you can see where it says to review. If I click on that, it's going to show me all of my classes and the assignments and the questions that I've posted and things that I've graded and things that need to be graded or that have just been turned in. So you can see that for my creative writing class, 0 of those were turned in, and I've graded 3 of those. So that was makeup work for someone. So you can kind of go in here and see what you need to do and what needs to be graded for all of your classes, as opposed to going through and clicking each class individually. So this made my life a lot easier with NTI whenever I discovered this feature, just not having to go in and click on each individual assignment 5 times for all of my classes. For students, this looks similar. So on theirs, it will say the classes that they're enrolled in. So for me, it's my Innovate classroom and our Central Hardin PGES classroom. So I can click on that to do, and I can see, okay, oops, I forgot to do our book study that was due in September. So I could go and I can work on that. I can go in and I can see what has been done. So if a kid is telling their parents, yes, I've already finished that, I've already turned it in, they can click on that done tab and they can see what all has been turned in. So you can see that I've turned in my PGB and my self-reflection to to the Central Hardin PGES classroom. So that helps keep students organized and lets them see what it is that they need to be doing for each of their classes individually. All right, to close the portion on Google Classroom, I have a few extra tips that I found just to be handy while I'm working within Google Classroom, while I'm grading, things like that. The Share to Classroom extension, it just makes, this is one of my favorite extensions that I have. So I'm giving you the link to install that extension. If you just click here on that slide, it will take you to the Chrome Web Store, where you just need to click Install to Chrome over on the right-hand side. But this extension allows teachers to create Google Classroom content right from the extension. So if you find something on a website that you would like to post to Classroom as part of an assignment, a question, an announcement, whatever it might be, you can do that through the extension. And students can also utilize that extension to attach material to Classroom in the same way that you do. So if I wanted to post these slides to Classroom, for example, I have the extension installed up here on my Chromebook. So I would just click Add to Classroom. Hopefully it'll load. Maybe. Okay. Here we go. And it's going to give me the option of how I want to post it, what classroom I want to post it to. So I can choose the class. Maybe it's first period that I want to see this. I can choose if I want to create an assignment, ask a question about it, make an announcement, or just create class material. So maybe I just want them to view these slides. So I can just click material. So that has been nice. So I don't have to necessarily save it to my drive and then go and open up Classroom, upload that. It just makes things a little bit easier and a little bit faster. Students can do this same thing. So if you wanted them to find, I don't know, find some reliable sources, if you were teaching a unit there or doing some sort of research unit, they could do this, just click that Add to Classroom, and they can choose what assignment they want to attach this to that you've put on there. They don't have to save anything as a PDF to post onto that assignment. So that's there for teachers and for students. And I've used this one a lot. The second thing that I really worked with a lot during NTI was the Adding Guardians to Classroom feature. So you do this through the People tab in Classroom. So you're going to see a list of my kids, but we're all Hardin County Schools employees, so hopefully we're good there. But if you go to the People tab here, then this is where that can be done. So you can see the teachers that I've added to this classroom, and then you can see my students that I've had in this class. So when you do this, parents receive one email per week with information about missing assignments their students have in all of their classes. So you can't necessarily add a parent to your Google Classroom where they can go in and they can see exactly what their kid sees. This is the only way that we can add parents to Classroom. So again, they only get one email per week, and that one email updates them on all of their classes that their kid is enrolled in. So really, the beautiful thing about this is only one teacher necessarily has to go in and add all of these parent emails to Classroom, and they don't have to be re-added every single year. So as a senior,
the question is the email automatically generated each week?
Yes, you do not have to do it. You do not have to do it. So I went in, and a lot of my kids, it is automatically sent if the parent accepts the invitation. So you can see here where this first kid In parentheses, it just says that their parents were invited. The parent never accepted the invitation. But on all of these others, you can see who is accepted and who hasn't. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So you can add, I use Google Classroom, so you can also just email all parents at one time if you had other information that you wanted to share. But to add parents here, all of mine have been added. You can, so the snowman next to your kids, you can invite guardians, and then you can just enter in the email and it automatically sends that invitation for them. So I was lucky, and as a senior English teacher, I really didn't have very many that I had to go in and invite, because if someone added Emily Bryant's mom when she was in middle school to her account, she is already saved to Emily. So I didn't have to go in and type in all 120 of these emails. Elementary teachers, you might have to go in, and you probably will have more to add than what we do at the high school level. So thank you for entering in all of those emails for us, because that's just one less thing that we have to do. But I definitely still go in and make sure that those emails are up to date based off of the Kids Infinite Campus account. But for NTI, this was something that was great, and just another way to communicate with parents, and something that I didn't have to do for each student individually. All right, so this was just super quick crash course on some things that I do to be more efficient for my students and to be more organized for my students when they go to find material on Google Classroom. So I'm going to go on and move on to Google Drive, which I don't have quite as much for Drive as I did for Classroom. But if you have any questions as we're going along, please let me know. So Google Drive definitely has a lot of benefits on workload organization and just all things for my teaching style. So I'm not just selling you Google things because, Google tells me to. These are just things that I've really found to be beneficial for myself. I don't care what brand it is. If it's not Google and it works, I want to use it. I know that several people still save materials directly on their computers and their little jump thumb drives, but there are huge benefits to using Google Drive instead of those two things. So I'm going to show you ways that you can organize these into folders based on units, subjects, or whatever works best for your style. And then I'll show you how to color code and number your folders to make them easier to find and access. And then I'll show you, just like I did with Classroom, some of my favorite shortcuts with Google Drive and how I use those in my classroom. So I use Google Drive, and I think of it as kind of my digital backpack. I'm big on keeping things organized. It makes me feel prepared, less anxious, and just kind of ready to start my day if I know that everything is in order. I've used a binder for each class before with tabs for everything, but Drive just allows me to keep organized virtually, and I never lose anything because of it. It saves automatically, keystroke for keystroke, and I never have to worry about my computer crashing or if my internet goes down like it did this morning. I can still access all of my materials from anywhere. I can just switch computers really quick and everything's there. All I have to do is log in with my Google account. I do have all of my files on my phone even, and I can work from anywhere. So when NTI hit, this made my life a lot easier. I didn't have to come into school every day to try to sort through my binders or my hard drive on my computer to continue teaching kids. I had everything. So because it's web-based, you can use it on a Mac, you can use it on a PC, an iPad, a Chromebook, whatever your kids have access to, you can use. So they can use a Google Doc on Monday using a classroom iPad, and then they go home that night and they can continue working on the same document on his mom's laptop. And then Tuesday, when you take your class to the computer lab, he can pick up right where he left off on mom's laptop. And then finally on Wednesday, when he needs to make a few more changes, he can get on a Chromebook in your classroom and do what he needs to do. There's no flash drives. You don't have to email files to yourself back and forth. Everything is there. With that being said, if you do use a jump drive or the drive on your computer, it's easy to upload your files to the drive to have these benefits. So you're not going to have to recreate everything, even if it's in a Microsoft platform. You can upload it to Google Drive and it can be converted to a Google Doc or whatever it might be within one click. Every tool that is in Google Drive was made with collaboration in mind that allow multiple users to work on that same document. They can insert comments in the margins or just let others kind of take a peek at what they're working on. And collaborators can be in completely different locations, which is awesome. This is something that I use with my co-teachers and people within my PLC all the time. For your students, they can work together really easily by all working on the same doc. So if you were working with the Online Learning Academy, or I even do this in my classroom, they'll share the same doc with each other and work together across the room. So they're collaborating on projects very easily without having to be close to one another. So that could be something that we use in person when we come back from this. So I create folders for units for all of my classes. So you already have a Google Drive with your Hardin County Schools account. If you haven't done anything to keep it clean and to keep it organized, the chances of it being a disaster right now are pretty high. This happened to me. My first year teaching, I had no idea what Google Drive really was. I just knew that if I created a Google Doc that it would be there somewhere. I had no idea how to organize it. So I spent so much time looking for things that I knew that I'd created, but I couldn't remember what I titled it. So I wasn't able to find anything, and everything was everywhere. So after that first year, I spent some time learning how to organize my drive, and now I spend a lot less time looking for material, and it helps me with planning ahead as well. So when I discovered this disaster that I created, I use folders labeled with classes to begin my organization process. So I was teaching AP Juniors, Honors, and regular and collab within my first year teaching, and some ACT prep classes. So I had 5 different preps that I was working with. So I started with just creating a folder for each of those preps and dragging and dropping things into the folders. And then I went from there and kind of divided those folders into trimesters and units within those trimesters. So now all of my materials for my classes are saved like this, and it makes it easier to access and to share with co-teachers or new teachers even who are teaching the same class. So I'll show you my Google Drive so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. We don't want to save that. Go to Drive. So as you will be able to see, I have different folders on the main page here for the classes that I teach, personal folders, PD materials, all kinds of stuff. Once this loads, I'm going to click on a folder for one of my classes. And you can see that, hopefully, 2 more folders are going to appear. So there were 2 trimesters to English 4. So there's part A and there is part B. So if you look in even further to part B of that trimester, you can see all of the materials that are there, and they're numbered in the order that we usually follow on our pacing guide. And this has really made my life a lot easier. So we start with a soundtrack project, which is a getting to know you activity. And then we end with the final exam. And then these were other units and planning materials that we've done in the past, but we aren't using anymore. So to create a folder, all you have to do is click this little new button up at the top. So when you click that, you are given some options. You can create your folder like we're talking about. You can upload files, you can upload folders. So maybe if you have those on your jump drive or your computer already, you can just go on and upload those to your drive really easily right here. So you just select the option that you need, you give it a name, and then you click the save button. So everything in my drive for the most part is in a folder, except for notes that I'm using today. I haven't added those to my PD. And then this basketball workout form that I created for our boys basketball team to be working with this summer. So if I wanted to create a folder for that, I would just click folder, and then I'll just title it basketball, and I'll hit create, and that automatically pops up here. So you can then drag and drop materials in your drive to the folder. So I'll just take this form, I will go up to the top here, and I will add it into that basketball folder. So everything is there. If you wanted to create a folder within a folder, you just repeat that same process. So I would just click new folder. So maybe I want to title this workout, this folder workouts, that, you know, in case he has me create something else, I'll be able to keep everything organized. I will drag and drop that in there. And then I can now share this entire folder with the basketball coach. So he has access to everything in it as well. So with all of my classes, any co-teacher that I have, when they ask, you know, what we're doing for the trimester, what our plans are, I just simply share that folder with them, and they can go in and they can even add things to that folder as we go throughout the trimester. So I can just click share, and I would share that with Matt Nickel and then click send, and he would get access to that folder.
I have a question. Here's a question. Do you have any suggestions for organizing student work from classroom, all of their slides, docs, and then also how do you change the color of the folder?
Okay. Let's start with your first one first. So organizing student work within classroom. What do you mean by that?
Not necessarily within the classroom, but the work that's assigned to them in the classroom, it automatically sends it to the drive. When you make a copy for them, it automatically sends it to your drive. And then it seemed like there were so many, it kind of just got overwhelming.
Yes. Do you have a Google Classroom folder?
Yes.
Okay, so all of mine are organized there, and they're organized by class. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yes. And I think it's just kind of the nature of the beast, or because there's just going to be so many. But like if I needed to go in and check one, sometimes it's hard to find them because you have to kind of go through every assignment, and there's 20 kids for that assignment, and there's just a lot of things to go through.
Yes, it is a lot of clicks. I've found that the easiest way for me to do it is not through Google Drive. I don't access any of my students' work from Drive. I just go to the assignment on Classroom, which if you're wondering, okay, I don't want to go through and click 15 or 5 classes to see who has turned in this assignment. That little, where's my Classroom? I don't have it. Yeah, I do. Right here where I was showing you earlier, that little work area, that review area. So if they've resubmitted and they want you to check and kind of give them some feedback, you can see, and this is for all of my classes, you can see if any of them have turned it in or if they have resubmitted from here. So you're not going through every single class and every single assignment. So that's kind of how I do it. But yes, you're welcome. And then color coding the folders. I'm going to show you that on my next slide. Let's see. But it's really easy and super, super fun. Yes, I thought it was the next slide. All right, so I use color coding and I use numbering for my files within my Google Drive. So if you are wanting to color code a folder when you are within your Google Drive, I'll just get us back to my main page here. All you have to do to give any of your folders a color is just hover over it. And then on a Chromebook, it's a 2-finger click, or on a mouse, it's a right click. And then you have this menu option that pops up here, and then you have change color. And so you can choose the color that you want for your folder from this menu.
Oh, I missed it. Shit. What did she do?
Just hover over your folder. Click the two-finger click it if you're on a Chromebook or whatever, or right click your folder if you have a mouse. And it's still on my screen if you need to see where the change color option pops up.
So I have a funny story real fast. I did not know I was unmuted. My daughter is sitting next to me and she likes to play games. And so she unmuted me and I had no idea. So thank you for repeating that for me.
No, you're so welcome.
There's another question in the chat. In order for an assignment to show up in the to-do, must we have put a due date?
No. If you want it to show up on their calendar, then yes, you have to have a due date. But if you just want it to show up on the student's to-do list, then it does not have to have a due date assigned. All right. I know I'm cutting it close on time, and that's totally my fault with my internet, but it's okay. We're gonna get finished. Another way that so obviously all of these are organized in alphabetical order. That just kind of works best for me. But if you wanted to reorder these, then you can definitely do that. I'm just pulling up this folder again to show you where I put them in numerical order. So like I told you, we start with this soundtrack getting to know you project. You can rename it. And since we start with that, I just labeled it as number 1. And I did the same thing with all of the other units within this class. So you can arrange them that way as opposed to alphabetical order. So whatever works best for you. And, I do that within my class folders, but I keep all of my other folders in alphabetical order just so I'm able to find those. But this just helps in terms of pacing for my classes. Right, and then I just have the fun little things to show you, and then I will stop talking. So similar to the Add to Classroom extension, there is a Save to Drive extension. So if you're browsing around on the internet and you find something that you want to save to your Google Drive that maybe you want to come back to later, you're not ready to post it on Classroom yet, or it's something that you want to share with somebody later, you can save it to Drive. So I've given you the link to install that extension there, and it works the exact same way as the last one. If I wanted to add this to my Google Drive, I just click that little button up at the top, and it tells me that this slideshow was saved to my creative writing folder. But that's not where I want to save it, so I just click change, and then I can put it in my professional development folder, which is in here somewhere. So I can just search. Yep, there's my professional development folder. And then I would just select and then add that in there to save it to my Google Drive. And it will be there later. So you can save it as different things. So you might want to pay attention to that. A Google document, if you wanted to save it as an image, you can do that. So just make sure you're checking your options here as to what you're saving your document as off the internet. And then there are a lot of other little hacks that I use with Google Drive. So I've just given you a list here to a web page that has 32 other Google Drive tips that could possibly be beneficial for you. So that's all the information that I have for you for this session. I don't know about you all, but usually I feel like I'll learn some good information from PD days, but I don't always feel like I have time to implement those into my plans and into action. So I'm actually kind of excited that we have a little bit of time before all of our professional development so I can make some changes to my instruction before school starts, not just from this session or from this PD day, but just in general. So we have about 7 minutes left. I'll be here if you want to practice some of this, and I can answer any questions that you might have. You'll be hearing this in every single session today, but make sure that you fill out the form for this session in order to receive PD credit. So I can put the link for this in the chat. That way you can just click on the link and you're able to get your PD credit for the day. But from what I understood, you're supposed to be filling this form out in every single session. That way they kind of know what room you're in, what you're doing, so you get your PD hours. But if I can ever be of any help to any of you, please let me know. Caitlin Farrow and I have another session this afternoon that is about implementing podcasts into the classroom, and we talk about implementing those across the curriculum and in different levels. So if that's something that you might want to do, then that session is at 1:30. So thank you, and I will turn my mic off. So if anybody has anything, just let me know.